Hey everyone, we're back doing another game recap. Today we're going to be looking over the games from September 24th. And the first game we're going to do is the Colts and the Ravens. The Colts pulled this one out in overtime, 22-19. Surprising result here. Gardner Minshew was 27-44 for 227 yards and a touchdown. It's going to be interesting because I know that the Colts turned down a first-round pick for Jacoby Brissett in the past. So I wonder if they're going to have that same hold onto Gardner Minshew. The Jets for sure would love to have him right now. They cannot get anything going on offense, and it seems like their entire team is revolting around Zach Wilson. So trading for Gardner Minshew for the Jets would be advantageous. I don't know if they would give up a first-round pick, though. That seems pretty steep, but that might be the price. We'll see how that goes. Zach Moss, amazing stuff. He's going to be pretty much a must-start until Jonathan Taylor comes back. 30 carries, 122 yards, just phenomenal stuff. He's going to get all the volume. Getting rid of Deion Jackson before this game too. They released him. That just opens up the opportunity for him even more. Trey Sermon, he just got called up from the practice squad, and he had 5 carries for 17 yards. But the main thing to remember here is Zach Moss. He looks fantastic. And Michael Pittman, 9 catches for 77 yards on 11 targets. He's holding steady as that number one receiver, even though Josh Downs had one more target than he did. 12 targets for Downs, 8 catches, 57 yards. He is going to be a name that you want to keep in mind because Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs being drafted in the same class, there's going to be some chemistry there. Downs is slowly taking over that number 2, or not even slowly anymore with this output, but he's taking over that number 2 receiver role that Alec Pierce used to have. So this is going to be, Josh Downs is going to be a thing. Watch out for him. Add him on your team if you have the roster spot. In deep leagues, for sure, you want to keep him. Maybe not for season-long leagues quite yet, like 10-teamers and 12-teamers, but he's absolutely on the fringes there. Alec Pierce had 3 catches for 43 yards. Zach Moss had 2 catches for 23 and a touchdown through the air. Drew Ogletree had a catch for 11 yards. Kylen Granson had 2 for 9. Trey Sermon added a catch for 4, and Isaiah McKenzie had a catch for 3. So definitely keep Josh Downs on your radar. Zach Moss, play him until Jonathan Taylor comes back. And Minshew, putting up a good case to be the quarterback of the New York Jets right now. We'll see. For the Ravens, Lamar Jackson was good, but nobody else really got it going. Lamar had 22 of 31, 202 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He also had 14 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Good production from Lamar. You just wish that the rest of the team got some of that. 11 carries for 51 yards for Gus Edwards. So-so day. This is a pretty Gus Edwards day. Melvin Gordon had 10 carries for 32 yards. That might be the more notable thing, that Melvin Gordon and Gus Edwards are almost the same as far as carries are concerned. Maybe Gordon will have more of a role because he has some passing down work. We'll see. Zay Flowers also had a carry for 2, and Kenyan Drake also had a carry for 0 yards. He also had a fumble, though, so I don't know if he's really going to work into this mix. I think it's going to be Edwards and Gordon from here on out. Even though Drake did have some receiving stats here. Zay Flowers had 8 catches for 48 yards on 10 targets. Really solid stuff from him. He's really cementing himself as the number 1 receiver for this team. Nelson Aguilar had 4 catches for 39 yards. Mark Andrews, disappointing. 4 catches for 35. Going into this season, everyone was saying he was going to be the number 1 receiver. Lock it in. A lot of people wanted to put him up there with Kelsey. This is just more evidence that he's not in the Kelsey tier. He's in a high tier. Like, he's in the same tier with Darren Waller, those guys. But as far as being the number 1 receiver, I don't think that's going to be the case for most games. I think most games it's going to be Zay Flowers. But Mark Andrews, he's going to have a role, and he's going to put up touchdowns for sure because he has the size that Zay Flowers doesn't. But you see here, even without Odell, with Rashod Bateman only catching 1 pass, Mark Andrews still wasn't getting any love. So something to keep in mind there with him. Kenyan Drake had 2 catches for 31 yards. Melvin Gordon also had 2 catches for 23. Isaiah Likely had a catch for 20. Rashod Bateman just had the catch for 6. And Devin Duvernay didn't haul in his only target. So Zay Flowers, absolutely a starter at this point. Gus Edwards, he's kind of on the fringes there. Him and Melvin Gordon are kind of one and the same. And Gordon will get you the passing down work. So he's probably the guy you want in this backfield, but it's going to be tricky because Edwards is a better runner for sure. So he has more potential to get a touchdown than Melvin Gordon does, in my opinion. But Lamar, good stuff. Keep playing him. Just because the team lost doesn't mean Lamar stunk. So Lamar, still one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. Next game is the Titans and the Browns. The Titans got destroyed 27-3. Ryan Tannehill was 13 to 25 for 104 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Nobody really got it going for the Titans today. Derrick Henry even had 11 carries for 20 yards, not even averaging 2 yards a carry here. And Tyjae Spears, similar stuff, 4 carries for 6 yards. Just miserable outputs by the Titans. DeAndre Hopkins had 3 catches for 48 yards. Really the only guy who got something passable here. Maybe Okonkwo with 3 catches because tight end is so destroying, but that's a huge stretch. Chris Moore had 2 catches for 41 yards. Okonkwo had 3 catches for 7 yards. Treylon Burks just had the 1 catch for 5 on 6 targets. And Tyjae Spears had 4 catches for 3 yards. So interesting to see Tyjae Spears lead the way in catches, especially because they were getting destroyed so bad. You would think there would be a lot more throwing, but DeAndre Hopkins, firmly the number 1 receiver here. Keep playing Derrick Henry. This was just a weird game. And Ryan Tannehill, I wonder if Malik Willis is going to get some opportunities here because this is a really miserable game for Tannehill. Really horrible stats here. The team sucked. I wonder if they go to Willis after this. We'll just have to watch for that. The Browns, on the other hand, had a really good day. These are 2 super hard-to-read teams, the Browns and the Titans. Deshaun Watson had his best day as a Brown, 27 to 33. 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Really good stuff from him. I wonder if he's more of a matchup-dependent play. We'll just have to watch for that as the season goes on. Pierre Strong led the way for all rushers. He had 6 carries for 27 yards. Jerome Ford had 10 carries for 18 and a touchdown. Deshaun Watson had 4 carries for 16 yards. Kareem Hunt had 5 for 13. Harrison Bryant had 2 for 4. Marquise Goodwin just had the 1 carry for 1, and Elijah Moore had 3 carries for -1. Jerome Ford is really interesting because you had so many people spending a whole big chunk of their free agent budget on him. And 10 carries for 18 yards, not efficient. The touchdown saved him here, but they just destroyed the Titans, so everybody was getting touches. I did see Kareem Hunt get some early game work, though, so that is definitely something to watch. He might have more of a role in this next game for the Browns. And Amari Cooper had a tremendous day. 7 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. He's a really safe bet to get targets every game, and he makes yards out of them. And the touchdown here is phenomenal. I think Amari Cooper is underrated as a fantasy receiver. It's probably too late to trade for him right now, but look out for the guys who think that they're selling high on Cooper, because I think there's going to be a lot of those guys that don't feel super confident about Amari Cooper, so they want to trade him because they feel like it's a sell high. Look out for that because I think Amari Cooper is more reliable than he gets credit for. 3 catches for 49 yards for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Elijah Moore had 9 catches for 49 yards. A really solid day for him. He led the way in targets. Jerome Ford had 2 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt also had 2 catches for 22 yards. And David Njoku, disappointing stuff, 4 catches for 20 yards. So keep playing Amari Cooper. Watch out for Kareem Hunt to get more of a role. And I think Deshaun Watson is more of a matchup-dependent play. That's going to be something that I'm looking out for as the season goes on. Next game is the Broncos and the Dolphins. The Dolphins went absolutely insane, 70-20 over the Broncos. Wild stuff. Russell Wilson, he had a solid fantasy day. This is kind of what Russell Wilson's been doing this year. Not very good on the field, but as far as fantasy is concerned, he's quietly racking up yards. 23 of 38, 306 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Not terrible stuff from him. Javonte Williams, he's just kind of cementing himself as the number 1 back here. 11 carries for 42 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin also had 5 carries for 15. Samaje Perine, just 3 carries for 9 yards. He's a drop right now. And Marvin Mims just had the 1 carry for 3 yards. Courtland Sutton looked great. 8 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. He looks phenomenal. It's interesting because when I had Judy above Sutton, pretty far above Sutton in my rankings, a bunch of Broncos fans were telling me, hey, Courtland Sutton is the actual number 1 receiver here. They're slow playing Judy as he comes back from this injury, so I don't know if Sutton is for sure the number 1 here. Because Judy did have a really good finish to last season, him and Russell Wilson seemed to have some really good chemistry once Nathaniel Hackett got fired. So I'm still expecting Judy to have a bigger role than this, but I mean, Sutton is putting up numbers. 8 catches, 91 yards, touchdown, 11 targets, phenomenal stuff. Judy had 5 catches for 81 yards on 7 targets. Marvin Mims, 3 catches for 73 yards. He's more of a deep ball guy. His role is going to be inconsistent. I know he's had 2 good games back-to-back, but I wouldn't call him an ad just yet. Javonte Williams had 2 catches for 23 yards. Samaje Perine had 2 for 15. Brandon Johnson had the 2 for 12, coming off that Hail Mary from last week. Nate Atkins had 1 catch for 11. And Adam Troutman, still no production from him. Really surprising after Greg Dulcich went down. But keep an eye on Judy's role increasing. I think he's more of a buy low right now, and Sutton is more of a sell high. And Javonte Williams, keep playing him. I mean, this wasn't very good output, but he's like solidifying himself as that number 1 running back. And Russell Wilson, on field, count him out. Fantasy, not so much. For the Dolphins, they went absolutely insane. 23 of 26 for Tua, 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. For a long time, he wasn't throwing an incompletion in this game. Just unreal stuff from them. Mike White was 2 of 2 for 67 yards and a touchdown. Mike White getting a touchdown. That's just the kind of game it was. And speaking of the kind of game it was, Devon Achane, 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns out of nowhere. Raheem Mostert was dominating the touches in this backfield, and then here comes Devon Achane looking tremendous, putting up 200 yards on the ground. He is going to be the number 1 ad in waivers this week, and I think it is absolutely deserved. I am calling Raheem Mostert a sell high because I think Devon Achane is going to get more and more of the load here, but just watch out for that. Put in a big bid for Achane if you still have some fab. He's absolutely worth it. Raheem Mostert had 13 carries for 82 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just unreal stuff from the Miami Dolphins backfield. Chris Brooks had 9 carries for 66 yards. Again, that's the type of game it was. Chris Brooks is out here getting 9 carries for 66 yards. Alec Ingold had 2 carries for 0, and Mike White had the 1 for -1. Tyreek Hill, stellar stuff as per usual. 9 catches, 157 yards, a touchdown, 11 targets. This is what to expect out of Tyreek Hill at this point. This is just what he does. Robbie Chosen had 1 catch for 68 yards and a touchdown. That was entertaining at the end of the game there. Raheem Mostert had 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown, just adding to his touchdown load. Braxton Berrios had 2 catches for 33 yards. Devon Achane added 2 touchdowns to the air. Just crazy stuff. 4 catches, 30 yards. Durham Smythe had a catch for 15. River Craycraft just had the catch for 13. So we were wondering what the production would look like with Jalen Waddle out, but it looks like they just leaned heavier on their backfield because these guys are insane. Definitely add Achane wherever possible, and Tua is basically a must-start at this point. Next game is the Patriots and the Jets. The Patriots took this one 15-10. Mac Jones, solid output for a rainstorm against a really good defense. 15-29, 201 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He's a good quarterback. Very underrated player, Mac Jones. Ezekiel Elliott had a huge day out of nowhere because he didn't get very many carries last game. 16 carries for 80 yards for him. Really good stuff. Ramondre Stevenson, disappointing from him. 19 carries, 59 yards. Was definitely expecting more out of him today. Mac Jones had the 4 carries for 13 yards, and Demario Douglas had a carry for 5. Don't panic on Ramondre just yet. I'm just, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be a thing here, but he's not going to lead the team in yards like this most days. It's going to be usually the Ramondre show, but still, it's concerning to see Ezekiel Elliott back from the dead, basically, because Ramondre had, I think, 3 times as many carries as Ezekiel Elliott did last week, and now Zeke is getting more carries, and he's more efficient with them. So watch out for that, but I don't think it's time to panic on Ramondre Stevenson entirely. Farrell Brown led the way in receiving. He had 2 catches for 71 yards and a touchdown due to that 58-yard touchdown there. Kendrick Bourne had 4 catches for 46 yards on 5 targets. Devontae Parker had 2 catches for 19. Mike Gesicki had a catch for 18. Hunter Henry, 2 catches for 17. Disappointing stuff after he's been really good the first 2 weeks. Demario Douglas had a catch for 15. Zeke had a catch for 7. Juju had a catch for 5. And Ramondre Stevenson had a catch for 3. So this is what the Patriots offense is going to look like. Mac Jones is going to get really solid output, and these receivers, it's going to get spread around completely evenly. Like, don't expect any of these receivers to really emerge. I think it's just going to be even every game for them. And watch this, I wonder if there's any rhyme or reason to why Ezekiel Elliott will get more carries in a certain game and why he'll get less carries in other games. That'll be something that we have to monitor as the season goes on because it's confusing for Zeke to have as many carries as he did. For the Jets, just absolutely brutal stuff from their offense. They need a new quarterback desperately. Zach Wilson, 18 of 36, 157 yards. I know it was a rainstorm and he's playing the Patriots, but that team seems to be completely folding in on themselves after Aaron Rodgers went down. Like they were arguing with each other on the sidelines, the coaches amongst themselves, or the players amongst themselves, I should say. Players fighting with coaches. It looks really bad. They need a spark in that locker room desperately. I think they should go after Gardner Minshew, but the asking price might be too big. We'll have to see there. Dalvin Cook, he's a drop. 8 carries for 18 yards. Breece Hall, disappointing stuff. 12 carries for 18. Nick Bawden had 1 carry for 1, and Zach Wilson just the 1 yard on the ground. Garrett Wilson, 5 catches for 48 yards. I think he's a buy low because he is by far the most talented receiver that they have. He's a top 10 talent at receiver in the entire league, in my opinion. And if they get a new quarterback, his production is going to increase. I wouldn't expect it to increase we were drafting Garrett Wilson as a top 5 in some spots, top 8 receiver in the preseason. I don't know if he'll get that with Gardner Minshew or someone else like that, but he'll definitely be better than this. But having said that, he's still leading the team in receiving. So you could do worse than him in fantasy while Zach Wilson is there, but it's just not ideal until there's a new quarterback. Allen Lazard had 3 catches for 39 yards. I know that guy is disappointed that Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Tyler Conklin had 3 catches for 26 yards. Randall Cobb just had the 1 catch for 12. Another guy who's probably super disappointed Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Dalvin Cook had 3 catches for 11 yards. CJ Uzomah had a catch for 9. Breece Hall had a catch for 9. And Michael Carter had a catch for 3. So Garrett Wilson, buy low on him. I think Breece Hall is a buy low also. Drop Dalvin Cook and cross your fingers that the Jets get a new quarterback soon. Next game is the Bills and the Commanders. The Bills absolutely destroyed them, 37-3. Josh Allen was 20 of 32 for 218 yards, a touchdown and a pick. They're destroying them. James Cook, 15 carries, 98 yards. Keep plugging him into your lineups. We just have to pray to the touchdown gods that he gets one eventually. But so far, he is just getting yards on yards. So keep playing him. Josh Allen had 3 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Latavius Murray, vulture another touchdown, 5 carries for 15 yards. That's really annoying. Damian Harris, at least he didn't vulture a touchdown. 5 carries for 15 yards because last game they both did. Kyle Allen, 2 carries for -2. Deontay Hardy had 2 carries for -2. And Gabe Davis had a carry for -2 as well. Stephon Diggs, enormous game. This is kind of what the receiving room in the Bills looks like. Stephon Diggs getting huge points and everybody else just kind of getting what's left. Diggs had 8 catches, 111 yards, no touchdowns, but 12 targets. Really good stuff from him. Gabe Davis just had the monster touchdown. 1 catch, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Very efficient. Trent Sherfield had 2 catches for 18 yards. Deontay Hardy added 2 catches for 15. James Cook just had the 2 catches for 14. Dawson Knox had a catch for 11. Latavius Murray had a catch for 6. Khalil Shakir had a catch for 5. And Dalton Kincaid, disappointing stuff there. 2 catches for 3 yards. So I would say the only Bills pass catcher that is a must start is Stephon Diggs. For sure. Gabe Davis is going to be crazy up and down. This tight end room is hard to figure out with Knox and Kincaid. And keep playing James Cook. Keep playing Josh Allen. They look really good. So you want the triplets. You want Allen, you want Cook, you want Diggs. That's what the Bills' offense is. For the Commanders, Sam Howell had an absolutely miserable day. 19 of 29, 170 yards, no touchdowns, and 4 picks. So he only had 10 incompletions and 4 interceptions. So he almost had half as many interceptions as he did, or was that half as many incompletions as he did picks. One of the you understand what I'm saying. Miserable day for Howell. Brian Robinson had 10 carries for 70 yards. He had a solid day. You just wish the volume was there more. He's the clear workhorse in this backfield. Howell just had a carry for 18 yards, and Antonio Gibson had 2 carries for 17. He is a clear drop, in my opinion. Curtis Samuel led the way for all receivers. He had 2 catches for 54 yards on 4 targets. Terry McLaurin just had the 6 catches for 41 yards. Decent day for him. At least he got into the double digits. Cole Turner had 4 catches for 35 yards, really taking advantage of Logan Thomas being out. He also led the team in targets. So if Thomas continues to be out, Turner, you could do way worse than Turner right now. He's a really good receiver. We recruited him at Nevada. He played at Nevada and we recruited him as a receiver too. So he is a clear receiving threat. He's a really good player. He had Power 5 offers too. So don't count out Cole Turner. He's a really solid player if Logan Thomas misses more action. Jahan Dotson just had the 2 catches for 21 yards. He's trending towards a drop right now. I wouldn't call him that just yet. John Bates, the other tight end behind Turner there, Bates is more of a blocker, had 2 catches for 12 yards. Antonio Gibson had 3 catches for 7, and De'Ami Brown did not haul in his only target. So rough day for the Commanders, but we did get it solidified that Brian Robinson is going to be the workhorse here. I think that's the positive that we can take away. Keep playing Brian Robinson. Even against a tough defense, he was still averaging 7 yards a carry, so he's a stud. Keep plugging him into your lineups. Next game is the Falcons and the Lions. The Falcons got their butts kicked 20-6. Desmond Ridder was 21 of 38 for 201 yards, no touchdowns, and no picks. He's just not very good, in my opinion. Bijan Robinson had 10 carries for 33 yards. Disappointing stuff from him. Tyler Algier had 7 for 12. Desmond Ridder had 2 carries for 3. And Kyle Pitts had 1 carry for -4. This is just bad coaching 101, in my opinion. Not like, you see Bijan Robinson clearly doing better. You still split carries with Tyler Algier. You're still splitting tight end touches with Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts, and even more bad coaching. Jonnu Smith used to play for the Titans with Arthur Smith. They're close. This is a product of a head coach feeding his guy instead of one of the most talented tight ends in the league, arguably the best tight end talent, not the best tight end talent because that's Travis Kelce, but Kyle Pitts is absolutely in the top 5, top 3 of most talented tight ends in the league. And Arthur Smith still wants to give Jonnu Smith the ball. It's absolutely frustrating, but Pitts did lead the way for all receivers. He had 5 catches for 41 yards. You just wish he would get the ball more because Jonnu Smith had 5 catches for 37. Super bizarre stuff. Drake London, 2 catches for 31 yards on 6 targets. Bijan Robinson had 4 catches but only 27 yards. Matt Collins had 1 catch for 23. Tyler Algier had 2 catches for 17. Kadero Hodge had a catch for 15. And Michael Pruitt had a catch for 10. So super frustrating stuff. I wouldn't drop Drake London, but I wouldn't play him either because this offense is so unpredictable. Even in a game like this where they were behind, still, Drake London, 2 catches. Kyle Pitts having just as many catches as Jonnu Smith, almost just as many yards too. But Bijan Robinson, obviously you want to keep playing him. Tyler Algier, I wouldn't call him a total drop, but if you did drop him, I would get it, but I would be against it for sure because, Arthur Smith wants to split these touches. He's still giving Tyler Algier 7 carries and Bijan Robinson 10 when Bijan is the guy that everyone wants to see, the guy who is producing, the guy who's been more efficient. It's just going to be frustrating until the Falcons get a new coach. The Falcons are winning just enough to where that's not going to happen. So I wonder if that's even a possibility. But, stay away from Kyle Pitts. Stay away from Drake London, but keep playing Bijan Robinson because the talent absolutely is there, and this team is showing a willingness to run the ball. For the Lions, Jared Goff had a really solid day. You could definitely do worse as your starting fantasy quarterback. 22 of 33, 243 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Jahmyr Gibbs had a bunch of carries with David Montgomery being out. 17 carries for 80 yards, 4.7 yards per carry is really good. Just wish that a touchdown would have been there, but solid day from him. Craig Reynolds got used a little less than I thought, honestly. 4 carries for 15 yards from him. Zonovan Knight had 3 carries for 13. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a carry for 4, and Jared Goff adding 3 on the ground, but he had the rushing touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, really interesting stuff here. Disappointing that Josh Reynolds wasn't targeted. I thought he would have a solid game after Luke Musgrave didn't play well last week against the Falcons. Amon-Ra St. Brown getting the A.J. Terrell shadow. You would think that it would open things up for Reynolds, but Reynolds didn't even get targeted in this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 9 catches for 102 yards on 12 targets. Amazing stuff from him. Obviously, keep playing him into your lineups. Sam Laporta emerging as a really solid option at tight end. He's going to have to be ranked in the top 10 tight ends consistently from here on out, it's looking like. 8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. Just amazing stuff from him today. Khalif Raymond had 4 catches for 55 yards, and Jahmyr Gibbs added a catch for 2 yards. So Sam Laporta really emerging as a tight end right now. If he's on your wire, definitely add him. Amon-Ra St. Brown looking pretty matchup proof at this point. And if David Montgomery continues to miss time, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be who they lean on. Craig Reynolds isn't going to get as many looks as I thought. So if Montgomery isn't there, Gibbs, absolutely a must start. Next game is the Saints and the Packers. The Saints were actually winning this game 17-0 until the fourth quarter, and the Packers stole this game from the Saints 18-17. Derek Carr went down. He was 13-18 for 103 yards and a touchdown, and Jameis Winston replaced him. He was 10-16 for 101 yards. So it sounds like Derek Carr is going to miss a few weeks with an AC joint sprain. Jameis Winston is a better fantasy quarterback because he will throw the ball down the field, and he doesn't care if he throws a pick, and that opens up the opportunity to gain a whole bunch of yards and get some touchdowns where there weren't touchdowns, or at least there weren't touchdowns for quarterbacks who are more careful with the ball. So look out for Jameis Winston to be a decent starting option, but this game does not bode well for Jameis Winston on the field because all he had to do was get them in field goal range and they would have won this game. So I'm not sure if the Jets are going to go trade for him just yet, but look out for him as far as fantasy goes because, like I said, he's going to force some balls down the field. Kendre Miller had 9 carries for 34 yards. Disappointing stuff from him. Tony Jones had 8 carries for 31. You would have liked to see Kendre Miller get a little bit more run here because they did spend a third-round pick on him. But he is coming back from that injury, so maybe they were slow playing him. And Alvin Kamara is coming back next game, so Kendre Miller is effectively a drop if you added him for this. Tony Jones getting just as much work, getting pretty much the same efficiency. No true front runner there as far as I'm concerned if Alvin Kamara goes down before Jamal Williams comes back. Taysom Hill had 4 carries for 12 yards, and Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry for no yards. Chris Olave, 8 catches for 104 yards. Very Chris Olave game. High catches, high yards, no touchdown. This is what we expect from him. 11 targets. Michael Thomas, really solid player when he's on the field. 6 catches for 50 yards. Isn't great, but he has a really high floor, and he's been getting some red zone targets too. So watch out for him. Could be a possible buy low, but you are taking that injury risk with him. Tony Jones had 4 catches for 21 yards. Juwan Johnson just the 2 catches for 12. He's had a disappointing season so far. Taysom Hill had a catch for 9. Jimmy Graham had the touchdown catch for 8. And Kendre Miller had a catch for no yards. Rashid Shaheed not hauling in any of his 2 targets. He's going to be super up and down, so I wouldn't call him a play, but he's one of those guys who at the end of the year, people going into next year are going to say, well, Rashid Shaheed scored all these points. We should definitely draft him, but this is what he's going to do. He's going to have these super high spike weeks like he did, and now he has 0 points. So don't depend on Rashid Shaheed for consistent value. Chris Olave, clear play. Michael Thomas, a very good injury fill-in. High floor player, possible buy low there. Drop Kendre Miller if you got him, and keep an eye on Jameis Winston because he is a very fantasy-friendly quarterback. For the Packers, Jordan Love, I'm not ready to say that he's good, but he's not bad. 22 of 44, 259 yards, a touchdown and a pick, leading the comeback at the end of the game. The completion percentage has not been there, but he's just figuring out how to stay fantasy relevant. He led the way for all rushers, 9 carries, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Solid stuff from Jordan Love here. He might clean up that completion percentage as he gets more and more games under his belt. Watch out for that. A.J. Dillon, disappointing stuff from him, but more of the same. 11 carries, 33 yards. No touchdown. That's the disappointing part. Keyshawn Nixon came in and got a carry for 11. That's interesting. Emmanuel Wilson had 2 carries for 6, and Patrick Taylor had 3 carries for 6. Romeo Doubs having a huge day. Interesting because he was covered by Marshawn Lattimore. 5 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown on 12 targets. Just monster stuff from him. Adam, if he's on your waiver wire. Jaden Reed, who I thought would have a bigger game here, just had the 3 catches for 63 yards. Luke Musgrave having 6 catches for 49. That's interesting with how good of a tight end defense that the Saints are. Dontavian Wicks, the rookie from Virginia, had 4 catches for 45 yards. Patrick Taylor added 3 catches for 23. and Emmanuel Wilson just had the catch for 6. So add Romeo Doubs if he's on your waiver wire. Look for Luke Musgrave as a good waiver wire addition as well. And Jordan Love, you could absolutely do worse if you're needing a guy for bye weeks or if one of your guys get injured. He just figures out ways to stay fantasy relevant. So if you add Jordan Love, I would not fight you on that. Really solid, not elite quarterback. You're not going to get elite production from him, but he just figures out a way to stay fantasy relevant. Next game is really surprising. The Texans beat the Jaguars easily, 37-17. The passing offense for the Texans looks really sharp, and I thought it was going to be the other way around going into the year, that the rushing offense would lead the way with Pierce, but Stroud is doing great stuff here. 20-30, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Awesome stuff from him. Devin Singletary led the way for all rushers. This is really concerning for Dameon Pierce managers. 9 carries, 41 yards for Singletary, 4.6 yard average. Pierce had the touchdown, but 14 carries, 31 yards, more inefficiency from him. I'm starting to get concerned here. Hopefully this offensive line gets healthier soon, but when Singletary is getting decent efficiency and Pierce still can't get it going, that is concerning to me. CJ Stroud also had 3 carries for 14 yards. Tank Dell led the way for all receivers in a big way. 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. This is why I was drafting him on pretty much all of my teams. He is super talented. I'm not ready to say that he is for sure the number 1 receiver here because Nico Collins had such a great first 2 games. But he's ahead of Robert Woods for me for sure. And he's there's a good chance that he can get consistent fantasy value with how well Stroud is playing. I love the quarterbacks and receivers who get drafted in the same class. You get that with Tank Dell. Keep an eye on Dell. Absolutely, he is an ad. No question about it. And he might be a start. We'll just have to watch out for that. Nico Collins, disappointing stuff from him. 2 catches for 34 yards on only 3 targets. Robert Woods, just the 3 catches for 34 yards on 6 targets. Dameon Pierce, at least he's adding a little bit more receiving game work. That wasn't there for him in the past. 3 catches for 28 yards for him. Brevin Jordan had 2 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown. John Mechie had 2 catches for 13 yards. Dalton Schultz just had the 1 catch for 9, and Devin Singletary having 2 catches for 4. So, interesting. The backups getting more work than the starters. Brevin Jordan outdoing Dalton Schultz. Devin Singletary outdoing Dameon Pierce minus that touchdown. And Tank Dell outdoing Nico Collins. So, is there going to be a changing of the guard here somewhere? Or was it just one of those games? We'll just have to see. And Stroud emerging as a solid, I wouldn't say he's a starter in fantasy quite yet, but as far as a bye week fill-in, you could do much worse than Stroud. For the Jags, we are approaching panic time for Trevor Lawrence. It's not full panic yet, but these first 3 games have not been good. 27-40, 279 yards, a touchdown and a pick. That's not horrible, but we absolutely expect more out of Trevor Lawrence. CJ Beathard just had 2 of 2 for 9 yards. And Travis Etienne continuing to be the workhorse here. 19 carries, 88 yards, 4.6 yard average. Really solid stuff from him. Trevor Lawrence just had the 3 carries for 12. Tank Bixby vultured that touchdown. That's annoying. 2 carries for 10 yards. And Dearness Johnson had 3 carries for 6. So interesting to see that Tank Bixby isn't getting as many carries as Dearness Johnson. But Travis Etienne, keep playing him in your lineups. No problem. Evan Ingram led the way for all receivers. He had 7 catches for 67 yards. He's emerging as a really solid starting tight end. Christian Kirk, 4 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. He really took advantage with Zay Jones being out. Travis Etienne had the 4 catches for 50 yards. Jamal Agnew had 4 catches for 49. Calvin Ridley, just the 3 catches for 40. He might just go as Trevor Lawrence goes. We'll have to watch that, but definitely disappointing stuff from him here. Tim Jones had 2 catches for 11 yards. Brenton Strange had 2 catches for 7. Dearness Johnson had 2 for 6. And Luke Farrell had a catch for 4. So definitely, Evan Ingram is 100% a starter. Christian Kirk is bordering on that, but with Zay Jones back, I wonder if that production is going to go down a little bit, even though it was really good last week, but just wonder how consistent that's going to be. And Travis Etienne must start, and, patience with Trevor Lawrence, but a very cautious patience, because I think with 3 underwhelming performances in a row, we are at least looking at the panic button right now. Next game is the Chargers and the Vikings. The Chargers took this one 28-24. Surprisingly, they couldn't get anything going on the ground, so Justin Herbert just went insane. 40 of 47, 405 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This team, they can run the ball when they need to run the ball. They can throw the ball when they need to throw the ball. In my opinion, it's just coaching is the reason why they're 1-2, because sometimes Brandon Staley makes some absolutely baffling decisions that cost him the game at points. If this team had a better coach, they could easily be undefeated because they have so much talent on this offense. It's just insane. Keenan Allen completing a touchdown pass for 49 yards. That's just the game that it was through the air today for them. Just awesome stuff from Justin Herbert. Joshua Kelly, not so awesome. 11 carries, 12 yards, miserable day for him. Justin Herbert added 11 yards on the ground himself, and Isaiah Spiller had 2 carries for 7 yards. So just miserable stuff from the rushers. Hopefully Austin Eckler comes back next game, and we can get something going there. Keenan Allen had a ridiculous day. 18 catches on 20 targets, 215 yards, no touchdowns, but he is firmly a top 10 receiver the rest of the way. He will be in the top 10 for all of my rankings. Just incredible stuff from him. And Justin Herbert, he is the clear top target for Justin Herbert, especially since Mike Williams might have gone down with an ACL in this. There's still news that we need to wait for there. It didn't look good, but Keenan Allen must start every single week. Just amazing stuff from him. Mike Williams, before he went down, had 7 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. Also, really stellar day from him, but keep an eye out for that injury. And if he goes down, this could mean good news for Joshua Palmer. 4 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. It seems like he's firmly ahead of Quentin Johnston on this depth chart. So I think Palmer is the one you want to roster if Williams is down. Gerald Everett had 6 catches for 30 yards. This is a solid day for him. Quentin Johnston, just the 2 catches for 10 yards. It'll be interesting to see if his role develops if Williams is out. If they're just going to stick with Palmer, or if Johnston's just going to come along slowly. Joshua Kelly had 1 catch for 5 yards. Donald Parham had 2 catches for 4 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is stellar tight end stuff. And Darius Davis had 1 catch for 3. So must start Keenan Allen every single week, regardless of matchup. That is the number one thing we learned from here. And look at the matchups, because if they can run, the Chargers will run. If they can pass, they will pass, and they can do both effectively. It's just Brandon Staley holding them back at this point. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins was 32 of 50, 367 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Super good stuff from him as well. A little disappointing because they only put up 24 points. I thought he would throw for more yards here because this Chargers passing defense has been absolutely atrocious, but J.C. Jackson was a healthy scratch, and maybe him being out really helped this defense. That'll be something to watch as we go forward, but 32 of 50, 367 yards, and 3 touchdowns is really good stuff from Kirk Cousins on its own. Alexander Mattison really responded in this game. 20 carries, 93 yards. I don't take the Cam Akers threat seriously. I think this is Alexander Madison's backfield. Maybe Cam Akers will get a little more carries, but Ty Chandler, 3 carries for 27 yards. They apparently really like him too. I think Cam Akers is battling Ty Chandler more than he is Madison. And then Cousins had the 10 yards on the ground. Justin Jefferson had a stellar day, no surprise there. 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets. TJ Hawkinson also had 8 catches for 78 yards on 11 targets. And Jordan Addison, just the 6 catches for 52 yards. This is a okay day from him. A little disappointing, though, but this is how it's going to be. KJ Osborne only having the 3 targets here. I think Justin Jefferson is going to get a whole bunch of targets. That is a given. TJ Hawkinson gets a whole bunch of targets. So I think Addison's going to be more up and down this year, but it is promising to see that KJ Osborne is taking a clear back seat in this game. Addison, 6 of 52. Osborne had 1 catch for 36 yards and a touchdown. Madison had 5 catches for 32 yards through the air. That's the good thing about Madison is he also contributes to the passing game. CJ Ham had a catch for 7. Brandon Powell had a catch for 5. Josh Oliver from San Jose had 2 catches for 4 and a touchdown, and Ty Chandler had a catch for 4. So I wouldn't read too much into Cam Akers coming into this backfield. I think Madison is the clear one. I think Akers is more battling Ty Chandler for that number 2 role. Keep playing TJ Hawkinson. He's looking like the second best tight end in fantasy right now, behind Travis Kelce, after Kelce performed well today. For Addison, I don't think he's a must start. I think he's more matchup dependent, and even, in a good matchup like today, he didn't do amazingly well. So a little slowing of our roll with Addison is necessary, and Cousins, he's a firm QB1. They had a great matchup here, so don't be too disappointed that he isn't the best of the best, but this team is dedicated to throwing the ball. They're going to throw the ball a bunch every single game. Cousins is a really solid starter in fantasy, and Alexander Mattison is still a good back to have on your team. Next game is the Panthers and the Seahawks. The Seahawks took this one 37-27. How about Andy Dalton having a good game? 34 of 58, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Who would have thought that Andy Dalton would have a good fantasy day today? Miles Sanders led the way for all rushers. He just had the 9 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown. Been a disappointing season from him, but good bailout for that touchdown. Dalton just had the 2 carries for 11 yards on the ground. Levis Shenault had 2 carries for 7, and Chuba Hubbard just had the 1 carry for 2. Adam Thielen, add him for sure if he is on your waiver wire. 11 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown on 14 targets. Stellar stuff from him. He had a good game last game with Bryce Young also, so this is going across quarterbacks he's producing. Definitely add Adam Thielen. DJ Chark, another guy I think is worth looking at for a possible add. For not a definite add quite yet, but he is definitely someone they're looking at. 4 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown for him. Just would have liked to see him haul in more of those targets. Miles Sanders, he'll do some work in the passing game. 5 catches, 38 yards on 9 targets. Terrace Marshall had 5 catches for 35 yards on 8 targets. Jonathan Mingo just had the 3 catches for 21. I think his role is going to develop more when Bryce Young is in there. Tommy Tremble just had the 1 catch for 15. Hayden Hurst, disappointing game from him. Disappointing to see that Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas had the same amount of catches. 1 catch for 11 yards for Hurst on 3 targets. Ian Thomas had 1 catch for 8. Chuba Hubbard had 2 catches for 2. And Laviska Shenault had 1 catch for no yards. So Adam Thielen, definite add. DJ Chark, a softer add, but an add. Miles Sanders, don't get too concerned with this 9 carries for 24 yards. I think he's a good buy low because he's still getting volume. Chuba Hubbard is the only other running back to get a carry here, and he only had 1. So even though Miles Sanders clearly got bailed out by this touchdown, a solid buy low candidate right now. I think he's a good runner. For the Seahawks, Geno Smith had an okay day. 23 of 36, 296 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Ken Walker is a stud. He is a must start. 18 carries for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just stellar stuff from him. Zack Charbonnet getting more looks in this game too, and he produced 9 carries for 46 yards. Really good stuff. 5.1 yard average. DJ Dallas just had the 2 carries for 7, and Geno Smith had -4 yards on the ground. DK Metcalf, another guy. Play him every single week. 6 catches for 112 yards on 8 targets. Ken Walker also added the 3 catches for 59 yards. Just an amazing game for him. Noah Fant had 4 catches for 41 yards. Colby Parkinson had 3 catches for 38. Tyler Lockett just had the 3 for 34. Jackson Smith and Jigba just had the 1 catch for 10. Jake Bobo had a catch for 5 and a touchdown. Zack Charbonnet just had the 1 catch for -1. And DJ Dallas had a catch for -2. Interesting to see Ken Walker have so much passing game usage because that isn't usually the case for him. This tight end group for the Seahawks is so unpredictable. I wouldn't go adding Noah Fant off of this. It's either going to be Fant, Parkinson, Disley. You just never know who's going to get what there. But Ken Walker, I think he's a must start no matter what. Geno Smith's okay. I would understand if you dropped him because he's kind of in that same middle of the pack, like Jared Goff sort of quarterback. But I think the main thing to take away from here, Metcalf, Walker, start every single week. Next game is the Cowboys and the Cardinals. The biggest surprise of the day, the Cardinals beat them 28-16. Dak Prescott did not have the best day. 25 of 40, 249 yards, a touchdown and a pick. And honestly, that's a better box score than what he showed on the field today. Tony Pollard, he was great. 23 carries, 122 yards. Keep playing him. Dak Prescott added 24 yards on the ground. Rico Dowdle had 4 carries for 21. Hunter Lepke had a carry for 9, and CeeDee Lamb had 2 carries for 9. Look out for Rico Dowdle. He showed some things this game for sure. Michael Gallup led the way for all receivers, surprising there. 6 catches for 92 yards on 7 targets. CeeDee Lamb just had the 4 catches for 53 yards on 7 targets. Disappointing stuff from him. Jake Ferguson, he really asserted himself today. This is his best game of the season. 5 catches for 48 yards. I know he had some praise from Dak Prescott coming out of camp. Rico Dowdle had 3 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks had 2 catches for 17 on 6 targets. Hunter Lebke had a catch for 12. Peyton Hendershot had a catch for 3. And Tony Pollard had 3 catches for -1 yards. Still, play CeeDee Lamb every week. Don't get too disappointed by this. I wouldn't go adding Michael Gallup either. I think he's going to be pretty up and down. Tony Pollard must start every single week. And I would understand if you drop Dak Prescott, honestly. He's kind of in that same Geno Smith, Jared Goff realm of quarterbacks where very fringe starters. I wouldn't play him every week. There's probably someone just as good on your waiver wire if you play in a standard 10-team, 12-team league. So don't stick with Dak Prescott long-term. Have a backup plan there. For the Cardinals, Josh Dobbs was great. 17-21, 189 yards and a touchdown. They've been sneaky good. They got that fire in their gut. They're quietly putting together some decent games. They kind of remind me of the Bears last year when they were impressively headed towards the number 1 pick in the draft. I wonder if the Cardinals are following that same path this year. I kind of think that with the Rams too, but the Rams seem like they're going to be too good to get that number 1 pick. So probably not as much there. Just keep an eye on the fire in their gut Cardinals. James Conner had 14 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. Really great day from him. Josh Dobbs also added 55 yards on the ground. Rondale Moore, 3 carries, 54 yards and a touchdown. Really awesome stuff on the ground from him. Keontae Ingram had 5 carries for 13 yards, and Amari DiMercado had 2 carries for 2. Michael Wilson, the rookie from Stanford, had 2 catches for 86 yards on only 2 targets. I wouldn't go adding him. That low target share concerns me. Hollywood Brown was great. 5 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. If Hollywood Brown could get this sort of stat line every single week, we will be just fine with this. He seems to be cementing himself as the number 1 receiver in this offense. James Conner had 2 catches for 18. Keontae Ingram had a catch for 8. Rondale Moore had 4 catches for 8 yards. Zach Ertz only had 2 catches for 6 yards. Disappointing day from him. And Trey McBride had 1 catch for 2. Keep Hollywood on your roster. I wouldn't say he's a must start, but if there's a good matchup, definitely don't feel bad about throwing Hollywood Brown in your starting lineup. James Conner is showing to be a really good starter, and I don't think the yards are quite there with Josh Dobbs yet, so I wouldn't go adding him as someone you could play at quarterback on your team. Next game is the Chiefs and the Bears. The Bears capped off an absolutely miserable week by getting destroyed by the Chiefs 41-10. Nobody on the Bears really looked good in this one. Justin Fields was 11-22 for 99 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He also led all rushers with 11 carries, 47 yards. Love to see the rushing output. Just the passing was absolutely miserable today. I'm not going to say Justin Fields is a drop because he does have that rushing upside, but I would be concerned if he is your only option starting at quarterback right now. Rashawn Johnson had 8 carries for 38 yards, and Khalil Herbert had 7 carries for 31. Interesting to see Rashawn outpacing him there, but that could be a product of them just absolutely getting their butts kicked. DJ Moore had 3 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown. Really the only decent day for output as far as Bears players. Cole Kmet just had the 2 catches for 22 yards. Chase Claypool had a catch for 15. Rashawn Johnson had 2 catches for 11. Tyler Scott, the rookie, just had the 1 catch for 6. And Khalil Herbert had 2 catches for 4, along with Darnell Mooney, who didn't haul in his only target. So I think the only thing we can learn from here is that Justin Fields, the rushing is coming. Don't drop him, but understand that he's going to have a higher floor than most players. The passing just isn't there right now. For the Chiefs, they showed out in front of Taylor Swift today. Mahomes was 24-33, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Great stuff from him. Blaine Gabbert came in and he was 3 of 5 for 31 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks, showing why he's the backup there. Isaiah Pacheco, solid day for him. 15 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Good stuff. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, almost identical stat line. 15 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes also added 28 on the ground, and Jarrett McKinnon had 2 carries for 9. I don't know if they're going to evenly split these. I think this was a product of, one, getting their butts kicked, and two, Isaiah Pacheco being hurt. So I wouldn't count on Clyde Edwards-Helaire for consistent production whatsoever. Travis Kelce finally is back. All it took was Taylor Swift showing up to the game. He had 7 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. Really good stuff from him. Rashee Rice had 5 catches for 59 yards on 7 targets. Justin Watson had 2 catches for 51. Sky Moore had 4 catches for 42. I think he's a drop. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a catch for 37. Jerick McKinnon had 3 catches for 19 yards and 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco had 2 catches for 16. Noah Gray had a catch for 9. CEH had a catch for 2. Justin Ross didn't haul in his only target. And Kadarius Toney had 1 catch for -1. So Toney is a drop. Those who had patience with Kelce were paid off today. Love to see that. Mahomes also had a really solid day today. There's going to be more of this. Yes, they played a really horrible defense today that was really downtrodden, but the connection is coming back between Kelce and Mahomes. For the love of God, do not trade Travis Kelce. Last game of the night just finished up. The Steelers beat the Raiders 23-18. Kenny Pickett was 16-28 for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. This was a really solid output for him, but you got to keep in mind that the Raiders have a bad pass defense. So I was expecting a little more with George Pickens out there, but we'll take this for sure. Najee Harris had 19 carries for 65 yards. He led the way for all rushers. So this 19 carries is a little misleading because Jaylen Warren still outproduced him as far as fantasy points because Najee didn't do anything in the passing game and Jaylen Warren had 3 catches. So keep that in mind with this, but still 19 carries is staggering compared to 8. As far as when you look at the two, Najee is not as explosive as Jaylen Warren, so you would think that that number would come a little bit closer together, but it seems like they're pretty firm with giving Najee the bulk of the carries at least. Jaylen Warren had 8 carries for 29 yards. Kenny Pickett had 3 carries for 11 yards, and Connor Hayward didn't get any yards with his only carry. George Pickens is really good. He's held back by Kenny Pickett not being very good, but he is a legit receiver. He's going to stay as a number 1 receiver talent in the league for a long time. 4 catches for 75 yards for him. A little disappointing because the matchup wasn't great, but Calvin Austin, he had 2 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. Really good day for him. Pat Freiermuth, he responded after 2 really miserable weeks. He did really well, especially for a tight end. This is a great line. 3 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown. Allen Robinson had 4 catches for 24 yards. Jaylen Warren had 3 catches for 23. Najee didn't haul in his only target, and Connor Hayward didn't haul in either of his 2 targets either. So Jaylen Warren still the back to roster because, especially in a PPR league, because he's getting all the passing down work. 19 carries. Najee still isn't going anywhere, having said that, so this seems like a pretty even split when you just look at the work on its own, or as far as like fantasy output on its own. And Kenny Pickett, not worth rostering despite a good game today. For the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo was 28 of 44, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. He didn't look that great out there, to be honest, but he seems to be the guy. They paid him certainly like the guy, $30 million per for 3 years. He is the guy. Josh Jacobs, nice little rebound game here. 17 carries for 62 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo also had 7 yards on the ground. Devontae Adams, monster day. 13 catches, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 19 targets. Like, I know Jacoby Myers had a great game last game, but make no mistake about, or not last game, but the week before last. But make no mistake about it, Devontae Adams is and always will be the number 1 receiver in this offense. But Myers looked good. 7 catches for 85 yards. Made some really impressive catches. If he's on your waiver wire, I would suggest adding him because this team's going to be playing from behind a lot, and they're going to be throwing the ball, especially if Josh Jacobs can't get more efficiency than he is. There's going to be some throwing here, so look out for Jacoby Myers going forward. Josh Jacobs had 3 catches for 18 yards. Hunter Renfrow had 2 for 17. DeAndre Carter had a catch for 16. Amir Abdullah had 2 catches for 16. So Devontae Adams, lock it in, must start. Add Jacoby Myers if he's available in your league. Stay patient with Josh Jacobs. This was a nice rebound game for him. And leave Jimmy Garoppolo on the wire. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Follow @WeAreDrafting on Instagram. weekly rankings on there, weekly add drop list, buy lows, sell highs. We're doing a last minute start sit questions Instagram live every week too on Sundays at noon. So check that out. Again, really appreciate you watching, and I will see you later.